DC?
Uh-huh,
The real DC?
uh-huh,
District of Columbia?
uh-huh.
What's he doing there? He got lost over there?
Probably. I don't know.
All right, it is 9 o'clock and it doesn't seem like my microphone's on.
No, no problem.
The tree, I think they are doing the tree.
Oh, are they?
I heard something about them
Am I on now?
decorating the tree.
Yep. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. We'll call the special meeting, November 29th special meeting in the Trinity County Board of Supervisors to order. Supervisor Gogan, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we're going to change things up slightly, and agenda item 1.1 to the end of the meeting, so we will be starting with the consent calendar. Is there any public comment on the consent calendar? Anybody on Zoom, Emma?
I have no raised hands and no new chats.
Okay. Does anybody have anything to pull on the consent calendar? Someone care to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move to accept the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Supervisor Gogan. Supervisor Gogan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves?
Excuse me. Aye.
Thank you. Supervisor Cox?
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier?
Aye.
Chairman Brown?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to county matters, item 3.1, grants. And is there, who would be the presenter on this item?
Susie.
Is Susie on?
I don't see her on here. And actually, I'm not sure that I have Richard on here either.
Where's Richard?
Oh, he's having technical difficulty. Just one second.
Online? It's slow getting on there. Yeah, give me a second.
Okay, I believe he's on now. Richard, can you hear us? Okay. Richard, I know you missed part of this, so I'm going to recap real quick. We have read the grants item, and we are looking for a brief presentation on it. Do you have that?
I do, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
What we have here is we have to do a corrective action plan. Years ago, when the grants department was formed, they administered our CDBG home and cow home grants, which we lent money to eligible people to purchase homes. With the end of that funding and having no staff, that wasn't audited each year. In order to maintain those funds, we have to make sure that those properties are owned by either people who are still alive and to qualify for those programs. And without those audits being done, when they did the recent audit, I think it was 2020, they found that the county had not been maintaining those, so we had to do a corrective action plan. And since we've hired Susie, she's gone back and done the inventory, and many of the people either are deceased or they don't have the owner occupied in that residence anymore. So we have since recruited and got a foreclosure service, and we'll be working on fixing those loans so they are up to a CDBG home and cow home standard. So it's an auditing process that keeps us in good standing with each of those. So it allows us to maintain those grants and apply for more. So it's required documents that we have to submit.
Does anyone have any questions? Staff? We will open public comment on item 3.1.
I see none in the room. I have no hands raised and no new chats.
Okay, with that, we'll bring it back to the board. Anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Supervisor Groves, second by Chairman Brown. Chairman Brown, how do you vote?
Aye.
Supervisor Groves.
Aye.
Supervisor Cox. Aye. Supervisor Gogan.
Aye.
Supervisor Frazier.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move back to County Administrative Office, item 1.1, conduct a public hearing and receive a presentation from Flow Analytics regarding the redistricting process and the introduction of the proposed final district boundary map. No fiscal impact. CAO Coons, are you on there?
I think.
Oh, Flow's.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have Flow Analytics on, so I'm going to pass the buck over to him, and he will present the maps and the research. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Richard and Chair Brown. It's an honor to continue to serve the county in this redistricting process. As someone said in the last public hearing on the 16th, I think this is one of the most challenging times for governments, obviously with the pandemic and so many things related to that, and then adding on the redistricting process to that is just another challenge for you all. So I just wanted to say that I have so much respect for all of you and for so many local governments for everything that you're doing right now. And this is the fourth and final public hearing for the redistricting process. The last one was on, I think it was Tuesday the 16th, so not that long ago, and we had Thanksgiving between now and then. But the idea is that, and let me share my screen here and just show kind of the goals for today. So hopefully you can all see that. Objectives for today are to do a very quick review of the criteria for redistricting. It's only one slide, and then understand the objectives and summary statistics of each revised map. We brought forth 2 revised maps today, and the goal of this meeting would be to not only, of course, receive public comment and supervisor comment on the revised draft maps or just anything else, but also for supervisors to narrow the discussion towards choosing a final map, as we're currently, I believe you're all scheduled to adopt the final map on December 9th, and December 15th is the deadline for that. So allowing a little bit of wiggle room there. So yeah, I don't need to go through. I'm going to try to go through my pieces faster so that we can allow as much time as possible for public comment and for discussion amongst the board. I'm also going to share, I have a slide that shows the themes that have surfaced in public comment, both through testimony at the hearings and also online through the redistricting website. And those, all of the comments that have been received online are available on the redistricting website, as well as public maps that have been submitted. And I also have, I've reached to the public maps that have been submitted so I can share those with you all. At the last hearing, we'd only received one public map so far. Now we've received a total of, I believe it's 8. So I'm excited to share those with you. Without further ado, yes, I'm John with Flow Analytics. I'm a demographer. We're based out of Portland, Oregon. We have a team of demographers and GIS and like mapping experts, and so we're doing a number of these redistricting processes in California and other parts of the country. We're also doing work for example, Plymouth County and Modoc County in Northern California. I think in some places this is called the final map hearing, but really it's, as I said, sharing revised draft maps with the intent being that we'll try to move towards, have discussion among the board to try to move towards a final map. But certainly things can change from these revised draft maps moving to that final, and also perhaps based on public comment. The revised draft maps, they incorporate elements of the initial draft maps. Technically, the two that I'm going to show today were derived from draft map A, but there's a number of differences which I can describe. They incorporate feedback by the public and the board, and really we don't want to have too many revised draft maps that we're working with because we're trying to move towards the final. So there's only 2 right now, but I'm also going to show the 8 public maps so that so the board can see those. The final map may incorporate elements of one or many revised draft maps that will reflect public feedback, though you may not see specific comments or ideas in the final map that maybe you've shared or heard. And then just a second, when I show the summary of public comments, it's actually impossible for everything to be addressed. There's no perfect map, and the final map will be a compromise. That I can say that with certainty after looking at all of the comments and feedback. Very quickly, the criteria that we're working with that are coming down from the state through the Fair Maps Act, and there's also some federal requirements, are that the 5 districts must be population balanced. And we'll talk more about how that's defined. I certainly know that all of the supervisors are aware, but in case members of the public are listening that don't know. The districts must be contiguous so that you can walk from one point to another without crossing through the district. They must comply with all local, state, and federal laws. Must be done to favor, must not be done to favor or disfavor a protected class or political party. Should be as compact as possible, meaning that population that's nearby is ideally not bypassed to take in population that's further away. But sometimes to meet some of the other criteria that has to happen. Should attempt to preserve communities of mutual interest, the ones we're working with here that have been defined or census designated places. We'll look at those. And then should preserve the use of existing natural boundaries, which could be things like rivers, streams, but also roads that kind of follow the contours of land and whatnot. I will say that, and this is, it's just something we have to work with, the building blocks that we have in terms of the 2020 census population data are what are called census blocks, and those don't always align perfectly with natural boundaries, but we have to use the boundaries of those census blocks to draw the districts. So when I share the maps, things look a little funny in some places. it's probably because we're working with those blocks, but some of them do follow roads and rivers and whatnot. And I'll just say very quickly, and I can elaborate more on this if the board would like. It's been addressed at prior hearings, but regarding the Federal Voting Rights Act, Section 2, that pertains to basically we're not to disfavor basically minority voters, and what that means is that if what it boils down to is that if it's possible to create a district based on citizen voting age population data, if it's possible to create a district that could have a majority minority population, then we're required to do that. While the 2020 census data does show that Post Mountain has a large Asian population, that does not show up in the separate data set, which is the citizen voting age population data from the American Community Survey, which is 2015 to 2019. That is the data set that the Department of Justice uses to assess Voting Rights Act compliance, and that's what we use to assess that. So those data actually don't show that that there's a large enough minority population anywhere in the county to require us to attempt to make a majority minority district. So that's been covered before, but that's why that's not something that we're focusing on here. Moving along, this is the timeline that I've been showing. There have been a couple of updates throughout this process, usually just by a couple of days. We're now at the final public hearing. We're trying to converge towards the final map. The board is scheduled to meet to adopt a final map on December 9th, and I believe the deadline is the 15th, but it may have been moved slightly by the state, but I think we're operating under certainly trying to get maps adopted by the 15th. And so also just anyone listening from the public, please do provide testimony during this hearing if possible. That would be as timely as possible. That would be, I think, before the board deliberates today, but you can still provide comments after this, but it will, at some point over the next week or so, become very challenging to try to incorporate that into a final map. So if possible, please provide that today. This demonstrates that we can't do everything that everybody wants with the final map. These are the themes from public comments, and again, these are the online comments that have been received through the redistricting website, as well as public maps are available on the site. But I've summarized, and this summary also includes testimony that's been received during hearings and what we've heard from the board. I may have missed something, but I believe I've captured most, if not all of it. So we've heard about considering propensity towards cannabis cultivation when merging communities into districts. We've heard from some folks keep individual communities of interest, census designated places, or CDPs as well call them for now on, intact. Keep Southern Trinity communities together, which I believe was defined at least by a couple of folks as Mad River, Ruth, and Post Mountain and surrounding areas, of course. We've also heard from some folks share portions of large population centers, such as Weaverville, Post Mountain, and Hayfork. Weaverville has to be shared because its population size is too large for it to all be in one district. Technically, Post Mountain could be within one district, and Hayfork can be. We've also heard, we've heard specifically don't split Post Mountain CDP, with some of the reasons being that there's a marginalized minority population there, lack of public infrastructure funding. At the same time, we've heard from other folks do split the Post Mountain CDP because of concerns about the 2020 census population being higher than what the actual population may be, as well as historic low voter turnout and impact on the electoral system. So those are obviously conflicting comments. Minimize population deviation across districts. is something that we've heard. We've also heard use the allowable population deviation to provide flexibility to meet other objectives. And we understand that full extent to be around a 10% overall deviation. We've heard support the downriver community by keeping the Canyon Creek residents in District 4, the Canyon Creek watershed, and then from at least one individual shared recreational areas and wilderness landscape among multiple districts, kind of sharing that natural wealth. So just wanted to share this so that the board can see all of this, and it also really just highlights that the final map will be a compromise because some of these things do conflict with each other. These are the existing boundaries that were adopted in 2011.
Jerry, your screen's not changing. We're still looking at.
Let's try that again. Did it change now?
No.
I'll just try to restart sharing. How about now?
Not yet. We're
Okay.
still just seeing the agenda.
Oh, have you not been seeing the PowerPoint presentation that whole time?
Oh, no, we have not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Bummer. Let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing altogether and then try starting again. I'm sorry about that. I did say everything that was on the slides, so as long as everyone was listening, then you heard it.
Perfect.
Okay, good. I'm so sorry about that. This is just what those look like. The words on revised draft maps, final map, singular, the criteria, the timeline, and then the themes from the public comments. And can you still see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for letting me know. So this map shows the existing boundaries that were adopted in 2011. Really just want to highlight here that as I know all the supervisors are aware that there's a large difference in population among the districts now because of all the growth that the 2020 census shows of Post Mountain. Post Mountain is shown, or I'm sorry, District 5 is now shown as having a population of 5,446, which is 2,226 over the ideal population of 3,220. Because the county's grown from about 13,700 residents in 2010 to I think it's 16,101 in 2020, with a lot of that being in Post Mountain in District 5. So there's a very large, this shows that District 5 is 69% above the ideal population of 3,220, and then District 1 is now at 2322 is 898 folks below the ideal, or 27.9%. So the 27.9% plus 69.1 is 97%. And that is the number that we want to be 10% or lower. And with that, really to get about a 5% deviation for a district, 5% deviation is, I think, around 150 or 175. So we really need to try to get each of the districts to within about 150 or 175 of the 3,220 in order for us to be at 10% or lower. I'm really going to focus on, there's two revised draft maps today. I'm really going to focus on this one and not very much on the other, and I'll explain why, and then I'll show the 8 that have been shared by the public. And I understand that this might not be what becomes the final map, but I just want to explain the rationale that went into creating this. So the focus is to address specific public and board input, although it can't meet everything that we've heard. So there's a balancing act there because some of the comments do conflict with each other. That's especially where we'll need certainly direction from the board on kind of how to move towards the final map. This does attempt to minimize the splitting of CDPs. Only Post Mountain and Weaverville are split here, and I'll talk about why and how things were split. And it strives to keep southern Trinity communities of Mad River, Ruth, and Post Mountain together. Although you can see, of course, that Post Mountain is split here. Puts Douglas City CDP into District 2 because of testimony at the last hearing from, I believe, both from the board and the public about at least ideologically Douglas City being a better fit with District 2 than District 1 if it is not to be in District 3. And I'll talk about why it's not in District 3, at least in this revised draft map. And then use the full extent of the allowable population deviation. This has an overall range of 10.3%, and it specifically tried to give larger population numbers to districts 3 and 5, which are the ones that are splitting Post Mountain, to attempt to address the concerns about the accuracy of the population in Post Mountain. So those both got cranked up about as high as they could get, and then that means that districts 1, 2, and 4 are all under the ideal population of 3220. The different specific objectives that this map tried to meet were, as I mentioned, it brings Douglas City into District 2, and the subsequent, I'll scroll through so that you can see more closely where the lines are drawn in Weaverville, but Weaverville, part of Weaverville's still in District 1 and part of it's still, there's still a part that's in District 4, although those areas are a little bit different than what they are right now. This certainly keeps Lewiston in District 1. The line between 3 and 1 is not far from what it is right now. This reunites Hayford within a single district. District 3 was the majority district, has recently been the majority district, and this puts all of Hayford into 3. District 3 takes on part of Post Mountain, and that it's also the case that some folks want Post Mountain to be split and some folks don't. It also happens to be the case that if we want to keep Post Mountain all in one district based on the 2020 census population data, which is what we do have to work with, that would mean that if District 5 took on all of Post Mountain, we would not be able to take on really much of any of Mad River and Ruth, and we've heard specific testimony that Mad River and Ruth should stay in District 5 because of South Fork Mountain. So trying to meet that, District 5 retains most of Post Mountain and all of Mad River and Ruth. District 3 is the district that takes on part of Post Mountain because of the proximity of District 3, especially with Hayport being right here and all being part of District 3. La City is currently within District 3, but if District 3 is to take all of Hayfort and part of Post Mountain because of its proximity, then it cannot take on Douglas City, and so that's why in this scenario, Douglas City becomes part of District 2. There was testimony that makes more sense than it becoming part of District 1, and there's certainly a lot of the play or wiggle room that we have is the amounts of Weaverville that the different either really districts 1, 2, or 3 take on, since there's a large population in Weaverville. And then this keeps District 4. District 4 takes on Heim Pond, which I think shows up in most of the public maps as well. It has all of Junction City and takes a little bit of Weaverville. And looking at that more closely, just by district, I think I just want to make sure, I'm trying to think to make sure that I touched on everything that I wanted to say here, but certainly I can answer more questions about the intent of, I guess I would say that the other option that has showed up in a lot of the public maps, actually, although several came in after this was created, which creates a little bit of a challenge. Several of them show District 4 coming down and taking part of Post Mountain and sharing Post Mountain in varying degrees with District 5. And some of those then have District 3 taking on part of Douglas City instead. The reason why that wasn't done here, but certainly the board can deliberate and I can show you what those public maps look like, was because of kind of the idea of compactness and trying to keep population centers. The thinking was that if District 4 came down and took on part of Post Mountain, that part of Post Mountain that is District 4 might feel disconnected from the rest of District 4 being so far away and the routes that you would normally take to get there. So from a compactness standpoint, which is one of the redistricting criteria, that's why they're, and because of some testimony about kind of this area here and where the line should be drawn, that's why had District 3 coming in and taking on part of Post Mountain, but we'll see what some maps look like that have District 4 taking some of it on. I think there was only one public map that was submitted that had 3 different districts in Post Mountain, which is 3, 4, and 5. So on draft map E, this just shows what District 1 looks like. I think I've talked through most of this. When I show District 2, we'll be able to see specifically what part of Weaverville it would take on.
So, Jerry, this is Keith Gross.
Yes, Supervisor.
My big heartburn on this is that these maps are nice and colorful and everything, but are meaningless because we really can't get into the details. When you zoom in,
Yes.
Yeah, if we had access to that sort of picture, which we haven't, at least we haven't had access that I know of, so.
Yes, this is, we can create more detailed ones for specific areas if you would like. I can show you today, I do have some more zoomed in ones at least where communities are being split, and I can also show you, I can also pull up, this is from the district scenario modeler application, that's the public mapping tool. So I can show that to you today as well, or meet specific requests for more zoomed in areas.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to need to work off of, especially in the Weirville and maybe Post Mountain and these places that are going to have to be split.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you. And at least for draft map E, this is what the Weaverville area where kind of what the split looks like. So you can see, and this doesn't have the current lines on here, but I believe right now there's kind of a line right here where Trinity Hospital is, and the airport are currently in District 1, so they would stay in District 1 in this scenario, and District 4 currently has certainly, I think, part of the highway here, and here it would, the line would go up Garden Gulch Street, and then I think it goes over to Barbara, and kind of go, at some point merges with Weaver Creek kind of north of there. And then this area is filled in with District 4, but District 4 would also come in and take on part of Main Street here, both north and south, west of Garden Gulch. So that would include, I know the courthouse is like right here with Court Street. This part of it, yes.
Well, to be clear, you're using different colors on this page.
I know they're different colors.
Okay, just so everybody understands that,
yes,
that those are different colors.
Yes, they are different colors, and I apologize that the public mapping tool has different colors from the other maps. Okay. I'm sorry. So yes, this is District 4, and this is District 1, and this is District 2, and they are different colors.
So if it was me, I would be pulling District 4 out, splitting that between 1 and 2, so in some fashion.
Yes.
Because Easter Avenue doesn't have a lot of in common with Burnt Ranch.
Yeah. And yeah,
I understand you have to gain then more points, but that's what my last week's comment is, that's how you go down all the way to split the pines up, rather than split Weaverville like this. But that's just my comment. Thank you, go on.
absolutely. And yes, some of the public map submissions are more in line with what you just suggested, so that's certainly a possibility as well. Any other questions on what this on what this looks like, or if you all had a chance to kind of look at it while I'm talking? Great. I think there was, yeah, for the reasons that Supervisor Groves just mentioned, and I kind of highlighted earlier, since this map didn't have District 4 going into Post Mountain, that's why it's taking on part of Weaverville, but certainly tried to keep it out of kind of the main part of Main Street and Historic Business District, since it's kind of more, the rest of District 4 is so far away, but it has to take on part of Weaverville in this scenario. So we kept a large part of, the Historic Business District within Districts 2, and then also District 1 taking some of that on. You can see that part of is Oregon Street here, and then goes out and kind of merges with West Reaver Creek somewhere out there for the boundary between 2 and 4. This is just showing the specific census blocks that are within the Weaverville CDP, and so you can see again the part that is District 4 there, and then District 1, and then District 2, and I know the colors are different. Now we're switching back to the other colors. So here, this is just zoomed in on District 3 for this particular scenario, and again here you can see District 3 takes on part of Post Mountain because of its proximity, has all of Hayfork, doesn't have any part of the Douglas City CDP, but it does come up to the Trinity River here, and it's on the outskirts of Douglas City. Different colors, but this is showing zoomed in on Post Mountain. The orange here is District 5, and then the yellow is District 3. In this scenario, District 3 is taking on about a population of around 600 or 700, and this is Trinity Pines Drive right here. And then the other 23 or 2400 is part of District 5. And the location of what District 3 takes on is mostly based on proximity to kind of how it would be approaching. District 4 reaches down to take on Heimpong, also continues to take on part of Weaverville. District 5, most of Post Mountain, and then all of Mad River and Ruth. Sure, we might come back to that. Heard Supervisor Groves' comments, or sure there will be other comments and discussion. Draft map F, I don't really want to focus much on this because I don't think that it's likely that, that this is really being shared to show that if we wanted to keep Post Mountain split the way that it was in Draft E, but we wanted to keep District 2 contained within Weaverville, that then District 1 would need to take on Douglas City instead of part of Weaverville to get its population. But I don't think that it's likely that we'll end up with this map. I was really just trying to show kind of what the impact of different decisions are. So again, this would be if we were trying to keep District 2 all within Weaverville and meet the other objectives of the draft map E. This is what the area would look like in Weaverville, which obviously is a little bit funky with, would be, District 4 kind of taking on everything north of the highway, Main Street here, except for this block going to District 2. So just showing draft map E again, which I think is the better candidate, but I'm sure is probably not going to end up being the final map, at least not exactly. I'd like to share now the 8 public maps that have been submitted, and I would just like to reiterate that, I described the thought process with creating this draft map. Several of the most recent public maps do have District 4 coming down and grabbing part of Post Mountain. And I know that is in line with what Supervisor Groves mentioned at the last hearing. But those maps that were kind of additional, testimony and in that regard were received after this draft map was created and posted on the 24th. So this is, and these are available. I can show these in more detail if you would like once I'm done sharing the presentation here. And they're also available in more detail on the redistricting website. There's a large PDF document that has all of the online public comments and map submissions. So as individual pages for each of the districts and then split CDPs. But this was submitted yesterday by Darrell Forsland of District 1. It shows some communities of interest that are split. I don't believe he intended to split these, and this, I think it gets down to the fact that the CDP boundaries that we're working with sometimes differ from local understanding of what these areas are. So, and I know that because this is showing all of the shapes of the blocks, it doesn't have outlines for the CDPs, but I can just talk through those. In this case, Douglas City is split between 3, 2, and 1. I believe Mr. Forsland intended to keep Douglas City all within, I think it was to be all within 3 here. And these are ordered to show the majority population. So he had the majority of the population in District 3 and then some in 2 and 1. He did intentionally split Hayfork because there's also some comment about how the authors created the maps and if they provided that. I think he strived to have that split kind of along the historic lines between 3 and 5. I believe Junction City was unintentional and was intended to be in District 4. Lewiston, I believe, was unintentional and intended to be District 1. Post Mountain was intentional and has the District 4 coming down to grab part of Post Mountain here, with the rest being District 5, and then Weaverville is split between 2 and 1. And I'll just say that of the 8 maps, the majority of them have that have been submitted. So great job, because we only had 1 submitted before the last hearing, so there have been 7 more since then. I believe 7 of the 8 have Post Mountain split between, or 6 of the 8 have it split between 5 and 4. One of them is 5, 4, and 3, and then one of them is 3 and 5. And then the majority have Weaverville split between 2 and 1. So I do understand that these 8 maps are more consistent with what Supervisor Groves has mentioned. This was also a map submitted by Darrell Forsland on the 27th, so on Saturday, and this one's just a little bit different from the last one. This also had District 1 coming across much further into District 4. This is relatively similar to a few other public maps, but it has District 1 coming down a bit further and taking on part of Douglas City and splitting that with District 3. I think the Junction City might be unintentional and intended to be fully within District 4. Post Mountain is 5 and 4, and Weaverville is Districts 2 and 1. And certainly Ruth and Mad River part of District 5. This was submitted by Kelly Sheen on November 24th. So not considerably different from Darrell Forsland's 27th map, but this one also has District 4 coming down and taking on part of Post Mountain. And this one, I think District 3, the line between 3 and 1 is a little further north 3 has the majority of Douglas City in this scenario, and I can show you where these individuals split. For example, Douglas City and Post Mountain. But generally speaking, this also has Post Mountain being 5 and 4. This was submitted by Keith Greenwood of District 1 on the 23rd. Also has Post Mountain being split between 5 and 4, Weaverville between 2 and 1, Mad River split between 5 and 4, Hayfork is between 3 and 4, and then Douglas City between 3 and 1. And then Supervisor Frazier of District 5 has, he submitted 2 maps on the 22nd and the 21st. So this one has Douglas City, I believe it was intentional, but he can certainly tell me if not, but Douglas City split between 3 and 2 here. Junction City is the one that I believe may have been unintentional. I think maybe it was intended to be all District 4, but it has a little bit of District 2, I think takes on like a little bit of it. Post Mountain in this case is split between 5, 4, and 3, but the population that 3 takes on was fairly small, and then Weaverville is split between 2 and 1. But you can certainly see that this is also an instance. This is probably the closest version to what revised draft map E would look like if District 4 were to go down and take on part of Post Mountain instead of District 3. As I mentioned, District 3 doesn't take on much of it here, but certainly the shape of District 2 here is fairly close to what revised draft map B looks like, but revised draft map B has District 4 taking on part of Weaverville, but here it's getting that population from Post Mountain instead. This is another one that's fairly similar, but I think it's really just the part of District 4 that comes down to Post Mountain looks a little bit different between these two. And there's some other minor differences, but obviously another map that's been submitted that has Post Mountain split between 5 and 4. And then this was also submitted a day after the last hearing on the 16th by Laurel Number of District 2. This has Weaverville is split between 2 and 1. Here, District 4 does not come down to Post Mountain, but it gets some of its population from Hayfork and also Douglas City. Here, Post Mountain is split between 5 and 3, and then Hayfork is split between 3 and 4. So that's a little bit different. And this was the first public map that was submitted by MMP of District 1. This one has District 4 coming down, and in this case, actually, Post Mountain is fully within District 5, and District 4 doesn't go into Weaverville, but gets some population from by taking on Ruth and part of Ruth and all of Mad River. And Hayfork is split between 3 and 4, and Douglas City is split between 3 and 1. So if I were to summarize, it's a lot of different maps that we looked at, but if I were to summarize it, seems like the most common themes for the public maps that have been submitted are to have Weaverville split between 2 and 1, Post Mountain split between 5 and 4, Douglas City between 1 and 3, and in some cases Hayfork ends up needing to then be split if it's not taking on any part of Post Mountain. If District 3 is not, I confused myself there, so I'm going to stop rambling, but Hayfork is not always kept within one district, but it seems to often be split amongst the public submissions. And so with that, instead of putting questions or comments on here, I'm just going to put a beautiful picture of the Trinity River to try to ground us before we talk about, before we go to public comment and then have additional discussion among the board, just because I know that there's different thoughts, at least between some of the comments we've heard from the public and then some of some of the testimony from the board. So just thought I would put a nice, beautiful picture here. But I'm glad to, when we come back around to discussion, I can do my best to try to show things in more detail or zoom in on things or kind of do whatever's asked of me. So thank you for your patience and your attention. And with that, I will, I guess, hand things back to the county clerk to, I think, take it to public comment. I believe that's next.
Before we go to public comment, do any supervisors have any technical questions?
I have a technical comment, and it's silly, but we worked hard to get it. On your main map, you show clearing the lake, and we worked hard and over 40 years to get that changed to Trinity Lake. So if you could just clear that up, and I don't want our official map to still have clearing the lake on it.
That will definitely be fixed. I apologize for that.
With that, we can open
It
up.
wasn't it was, that shows that because it's kind of like a public base map that is available that showed some of the water features better than some of the other base maps, and that was one of the trade-offs. But I believe we recently got the kind of specific data layers that are maintained by the county for watersheds and waterways. So we'll make sure that is fixed and looks better.
Thank you.
I have one question for Jerry. Is there any way I could see Supervisor Frazier's map down to closer to the street level? Do you have that capability in the moment, or does that take time?
I can do that.
Okay.
So this is Liam Gogan, District 3. I would like to see all the maps down to a granular level.
And do you mean right now, supervisors, or do you mean to be shared after this?
After public comment? We'll be fine. After public comment, we'll be fine.
Are you all right with that, Jill, or do you want to?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. And then I have one process question for you, Dan. When we have people come for public comment who have created a map, is there any way that they could have more than just 3 minutes because maybe they want to give us some better understanding of why they did what they did?
I think I'm okay with that if we're asking them questions on their map. With that, I guess we can open public comment. And
Good morning. I guess my issue is that the Post Mountain people have been disenfranchised for years, and it bothers me. And you're doing it again. They have enough people there to have their own district. They should have their own district. I've heard rumors that people are upset because they don't vote. I used to deliver mail to Haimpong, Hayfork, and Douglas City, and none of the post offices increased in size. You added 3,000 people in Post Mountain, and not one mailbox has been added to Hayfork. Not one mailbox or post office has been added to Post Mountain. So they are totally disenfranchised. I have personally seen 500 envelopes returned to center that were ballots that were returned back to elections because they weren't able to be delivered. So you guys need to do something to support those people who live in Post Mountain. And to dividing it up by 3 or 4 different districts is not the right way to do it. And you should be ashamed of yourself.
Can we get your name for the record?
Nope.
Any other comment from the room?
Good morning, Supervisors. John Brower from Junction City. What a mess. The consultant's done, a fair job of trying to make sense of this and make it available to the public. But something this important really does require, I think, more community outreach and greater time. I know there's a deadline facing us in December. It may behoove the supervisors to schedule some real public workshops in the communities to sort through this important matter over greater time. Yes, we may miss the deadline, but I think it's more important to get it right. of the maps I've seen, I like map D from the last hearing. I think it made the most sense of the ones that were presented at that time and was the least disruptive, especially to District 3. District 3 seems to be the hot potato that is getting tossed around the most in all this, and it seems that Supervisor Frazier's, I think, first map that was presented just now is also a top choice of mine. It's between, if I had to choose right now, based on the maps I've seen, it would be between map D and Supervisor Frazier's draft map, the first one that was shown just now. It seems to be most consistent with watersheds and existing social values and communities. But this can be disruptive any way we slice it, but I think those two are the least disruptive that I can see at this time. I really want to encourage you guys to take more time to sort through this in a better public engagement kind of way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Darrell Forsland from Weaverville. I did present 2 maps. I would probably tell you that I'm not really happy with either one of them. And one of them I did last night. So trying to work through some of the issues that are out there. A couple of comments I would like to make if I got a little bit more time. But first of all, the base map that they use has maybe not a significant error, but it does show Hayfork, the boundary line between 3 and 5 and Hayfork as being Kingsbury Road, and the boundary line is actually Hayfork Creek. So there, I mean, that probably doesn't amount to much for what we're trying to do. But the other thing that I think is kind of important to think about is that some of the blocks out there are using PG&E transmission line as block lines. And I got to tell you, that's going to be pretty darn hard to come up with a legal description of a district if it uses one of those transmission lines as a boundary. Those are just kind of asides. I was looking at it from the standpoint of, gee, Weaverville's too big, so it's got to be cut. Post Mountain's too big, so why shouldn't it be cut as well? And essentially, why shouldn't Hayfork be cut? I mean, we're cutting some of our bigger communities, and then we should be paying a lot of attention to how we cut them. If we've got a cut a community, can we limit it to 2 instead of 3, so that there is at least a more of a majority in that cut portion connected to the other parts, instead of cut it down to 3. And then years ago, Ross Burgess and I were talking about that kind of stuff, and he was talking about when those districts get cut, that the people outside are disenfranchised. And I says, well, the ones that are being cut out are more disenfranchised, because typically the downriver folks are downriver folks and not Weaverville folks. And so typically I think it's pretty important to think in terms of if you cut them, what you cut them. To me, most of us think that there's questions about the Post Mountain count. And so if we don't cut Post Mountain, we could end up with, as I said last time, you could end up with a district with maybe a couple hundred actual registered voters in it, which would mean that district had an offline comparison to everybody else's district, which will have a couple thousand voters in them. So to me, you really you have to do something else with Post Mountain rather than make it a district as its own. So I would like to have an opportunity to spend some time with some of the people that actually made some presentations. Some of them are kind of close to what I was looking at. I would think maybe if Dan and Sheen and myself could get together, maybe anybody else that presented the map, maybe we could do a little bit of a workshop, and maybe we could do it in here where we could get a big screen to look at things with and that kind of stuff. So, because I put a couple of maps in, but I would tell you that if you like those maps, I would want to spend more time on them. I'm not happy with some of the divisions that are done as well. So I think it does need more time to actually get to where we want to be to have a final map that you guys might be able to accept. So if you have any questions about what I put in, but like I say, at this point, the other thing that I think would be really, really helpful is that detail map that he showed. As an ex-elections official, when I was looking at putting blocks in districts and that kind of thing, I'm thinking in terms of what it would try to do to create a precinct that you could have a voting precinct in and that kind of stuff. And so a lot of those blocks, you can't tell what the boundaries of them are. And so but that detail map that he showed would help a lot in actually coming up with a better map that would tell us where a voting precinct might be, for instance, because that's one of the outcomes of what you're going to do. All this stuff has to be precinct, and you have legal descriptions for each one of those precincts. And so somebody's got to figure out where all that is. So those detail maps would be really beneficial. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment in the room?
Seeing none, we will go to online.
I agree that Kelly's map is also pretty good too. Should be part of that conversation.
Okay, Veronica Kelly Albies.
Hi, this is Veronica Kelly Albies, Douglas City. I'm one of probably your most directionally challenged residents of Trinity County. So as I went in and I was trying to take a look at using the mapping tool, I have to admit I had to give up. It was very clunky and very difficult for me to utilize. I would agree with what Supervisor Groves was going for and Supervisor Frazier in terms of like-minded communities being together. I think there are real parts of Douglas City that are more in tune with, or that are part of District 2. And the detailed map would be so helpful for really getting a grasp of where all these lines are to be able to provide a better public comment experience for all of you. And I think too, a good idea would be to put a draft map in the Trinity Journal because, you know, wanting public comment, not everybody can make it to these meetings or has the capability for the video to be able to see these drafts that are being presented. Something that's a draft that's in a print format that the community is going to be taking a look at. We all know we're going to get some comment at that point. And it's better to do it in a draft setting as opposed to after it's been finalized and then what are we going to do? I don't know if there's time for that, but if you guys do come up with some ideas that could be put out to the public in the journal or something that they could be sitting with their coffee and taking a look at and being able to provide some feedback, that might help with public engagement as well. But a detailed map provided to the public would really help us figure out exactly what we're taking a look at. This is a really difficult task. I don't envy you on how to figure out how to split all of this up. But thank you for those efforts. And but yeah, detailed maps, better public engagement might give some better insight. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Lutweiler.
Hi there, thank you. My question, I really just want a better understanding. It's clear to me that the boundary changes change who gets to vote for the person in their district to be the supervisor. I'm just unclear as to if there are other implications to the changing of the boundaries than that.
Would anyone care to answer that question?
No, in my opinion, Darrow would be the best source on this, but the fact is that I don't believe there is any other implications. This is just a supervisorial.
Right, looking up. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Planning commissioners.
Planning commissioners.
Okay, so it was added that, yeah, the planning commissioners would have to be out of those districts for the same supervisor.
If I may, I do have a comment about that.
Okay, go back to public comment. Go to Kelly Sheen.
Just to touch on that, the main implication of changing the supervisorial district boundaries also impacts, as Darrow mentioned, precincting. And beyond precincting is also like special districts and how the special districts are broken down. So as part of my public comment here, I didn't really submit, this was kind of came in late on the 24th, as Jerry mentioned. I didn't put any real comments in mine, just due to the lateness of it, but I did, kind of sit with Liam Gogan to sort of try to nail down some of the less impactful ways that we could, we try to minimize basically the disruption to the communities. And, you know, as far as that detailed map of option E that Jerry was presenting, the way that the northern part of town is broken down between 1 and 2 and 4, to me that's almost more disruptive than having one split of say Post Mountain, with the majority of Post Mountain being in my option, in my map, basically being primarily in District 3, with a little bit for 4. And so for me, 4, it made more sense to try to keep as much of 5 intact as possible. So I used basically South Fork Mountain as the divider, with 4, you know, taking up Pine Palm and everything sort of upstream of that until it got right about the Highway 36 crossing. And there was about 749 people that were broken out with that option of the Post Mountain CDP. You know, and the other break that we had, you know, just out of necessity, was to bring in some of the Douglas City into District 1, which seems inevitable to me, as I mentioned in previous public hearing, with it mostly focused on Little Browns Creek, Union Hill, Steel Bridge, and everything that's kind of going out on that eastern side, going towards Lewiston, which obviously is mostly taken in by, or is entirely taken in by 1. So I guess my point is that, you know, if we're talking about communities of interest and people that are like-minded, you know, one side of Barbara Avenue being in District 4 and one side being in District, you know, 1 doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Same with Oregon Street. I'll just leave it at that for now.
I have no other raised hands and no new chats.
Okay, with that, we can bring it back to the board for further discussion and take a closer look at those publicly submitted maps.
I don't know if by the calendar it's possible, but if it were, it seems like it would be really cool to have a zoomed in map where we can see down to the street level. And then, like everything that Kelly just said, I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but if I was looking at a map while he was describing what he was aiming at, I like his idea of let's figure out the least disruptive product, but it just feels a little bit ambiguous, a little vague to try to talk about that when we're not looking at what we're talking about.
I agree with Jill. I think we should get down to the street level map. We should also invite Darrow, Kelly, supervisors to a meeting, and the public, I guess, to a meeting to try to get this down to a little better detailed map than we have now. With, I certainly think Darrow and Kelly know a lot about the area, and they'd be a big help to us in getting this map better than it is. I know me and Darrow worked on it, and me and Kelly worked on it, and worked on it. I don't think we got it even perfect then, so it would be, I think we do need to go back and look at it and try to get it as right as we can. This is going to last for a while, and we should come to no rush to judgment on what we're doing right now.
This is Supervisor Brown here. I guess I'm a little surprised because I feel like we've been having these meetings and it has been a public process and everyone's had the ability to make maps. Only 8 of them have been made and submitted, and it seems like everyone waited to the last minute to kind of request further detailed information. We've had this in front of us for months. So part of me is a little surprised to hear everyone's kind of panicking at the last moment here. So, I think, based on, well, I guess I want to hear a detailed concern about what someone's worried about with some of the communities maybe being split in some ways, partially. Like, what's the worst thing that will actually happen? Maybe a supervisor would be interested in commenting on this if they have that opinion. Are you worried about losing votes, or are you worried about an actual disruption in a community methodology?
I'll go ahead and comment to that. I'm worried about the breaking up of the districts right now as they sit, and the lack of getting a map that's down to street level so we can actually tell where the boundaries are street by street. And I do agree with Darrell that using the transmission line is, I don't even know if you can do that, but we do need to look at this a lot closer, Jeremy. I think that the board here is willing to do that, and to include a few other people in our discussion that have great knowledge of this county.
Jeremy, this is Keith. It's the example I would use is, say, Canyon Creek. Though I think the people of Canyon Creek have a great deal in common with the people of northern Trinity County. They associate it Junction City, so that's their community. It's not necessarily they're differently like-minded, but that's where they go. And my issue, and maybe I'm just naive about this, that Douglas City has its own kind of group. I know through the schools, where most of my information would come from between those two, there's kind of a rivalry. Again, it's not that one side is against Trinity County, the other's for or anything. It's just that they are in a community of their own. And my understanding of Douglas City, and of course Liam can correct me, is that there's more tied to Weirville than they are to Lewiston. And I will say the North Lake, maybe not Lewiston. Lewiston is actually more tied to Reading than it is to Weirville. But the North Lake is more tied to Weirville than it is either Lewiston or Douglas City. So having the people associate or have like-minded issues, I think is important. One of the reasons that I think District 1 should take a little bigger piece of Weirville is that I have East Weaver. Those people, talk about disenfranchised, those people are very disenfranchised, because if I want to hold a meeting there, there's no place to go to meeting because they're Weaverville people. There's not a East Weaver Grange that we can have a meeting at or anything else. So though that they're a big part of my district, I've always felt bad that their issues are more Weirville issues. And so if we cut that to have the whole north part of Weirville, this is one of the maps, then that is a bigger group that maybe they would be more apt to work as a group with their supervisor. And then the disenfranchised of Post Mountain, I think that's a little bit of a red herring. It could be a huge enfranchising them, because in theory, if you had 3 there, they could elect 3 supervisors. This is one of my worries of splitting this, is that if we take all of one area, then if Weirville was the dominant part of District 1, then Weirville will elect a supervisor for District 1 for the next 10 years. Now Lewiston probably says that about the North Lake, because we've had a North Lake person in for years. But having that split means that it's fair to the outlying areas, that you just don't have, in theory right now you could have 3 supervisors out of Weirville. So balancing that out to the outline areas and that kind of wagon wheel thing, I think it makes it more fair for the outlying areas. I don't know if that answered your question in any way, Jeremy, but, and the other issue is, I had hoped that as we went down this process, the maps would get better. And so that we had a macro view of it, and it's like, okay, here's a big macro view, and then at the end, we are down talking about streets. And so that's, I wasn't terribly concerned at the first, but this time I am concerned that we don't have better maps, and I am concerned that there was no maps in the backup published on Wednesday, and that I had to ask where they would be, and they said, well, they'll be on that site on Wednesday, and Wednesday when I went, they weren't there. So today is the first day I saw the maps. Now maybe I could have hustled up on vacation time and searched it out, or gotten Susie out of bed on Sunday morning and asked where they were at, but they should be there for the public to easily say on the item, here it is, or link to it or something, so the public has a right to look at it like we normally do business. All right, I'm done.
All right, so I'm going to tack on the keys, social, mentally minded people of what my district is. I've lived in District 3 for 35 years. So I think if you consider yourself a Douglas City person, starting up Highway 299, I think from Poker Bar down to my store, we'll say, going out Highway 3, I would say top of Hayfork Summit towards Douglas City. They consider themselves Douglas City people. Obviously the people right in Douglas City do. And then I think, you know, you could be in either way out Little Browns Creek. I know that's kind of split right now, but I think Tucker Hill definitely feels Douglas City. Union Hill feels Douglas City. Green Creek, Dewitt Springs, definitely a Douglas City feel there. I know there's going to have to be some splitting of some of that, especially towards District 1 or District 2. But if you just want the social, mental feeling of who thinks they live where, if you ask them anybody you associate with, that's what those people would say they associate with. And I would like to keep that intact as possible.
Jeremy, this is Dan. I do have one question that you might be able to answer, because in my draft map, whatever you want to call it, I did put Post Mountain, a pretty good piece of Post Mountain in District 4, and somewhat concerned about that because that is kind of isolated from the rest of the district. The reason I chose District 4 is because you could then leave Hayfork and District 3, the entirety of Hayfork, which hasn't been the case for the past 10 years. But you being District 4, what do you think of having part of Post Mountain in District 4? Do you think that will work, or do you think that is going to be completely disenfranchising that segment?
I mean, for me personally, my personal view on it is anyone that wants to call me and discuss their county needs, if I'm their supervisor, you know, it doesn't matter where they're located. I'm listening to what their need is or what the county is lacking in providing for them. Knowing that Post Mountain is, I don't know how to, I haven't been there for almost 10 years probably. So I would have no objections on acquiring the Post Mountain into District 4. I don't see how it would negatively impact me or the district. I don't see how it would benefit the district, or, you know, I guess maybe I'm just not, without having a history of all these communities as much as you guys all do and other members of the community, maybe I'm kind of missing some of the points. But I guess Yeah, I have no objections with Post Mountain being part of District 4. I would be honored to serve the residents that are there, and I don't feel like the distance between the 299 and Highway 3 would inhibit my ability to do a good job at serving those constituents if it was made that way.
All right. So,
I think that for District 2, just to kind of tack on to Liam's point, kind of the description that you were giving, and really Keith's point as well. If you look at, say, the area of Weaverville where Kelso Street is, and they vote in District 4 right now, and they say, well, golly, I live in the Weaverville Basin, that just doesn't really make sense to me. So I picture that there's a way to incorporate what Keith was saying, bringing District 1 maybe straight down a little bit more, so where right now you're East Weaver, but you're not Brooks Lane, and if that was more of a straight shot across there, that squishes District 2 down to where you could then move over to the west just a bit, incorporate this. I feel like there's these tiny tweaks that could happen with all of these conversations if we were down to the street level and could see that map and just have a dialogue about it. But it does seem like some of those smaller points kind of are important to those people. I see what Jeremy's saying too, just that broader context. We're all listening to whomever has an issue, but really to be voting and speaking into those issues with those like-minded people in your community and not be different than the person across the street. It kind of does seem important.
I agree.
A comment on that because, you know, I won narrowly in my election by 13 votes. So I'm a 50-50 representation, theoretically, of the voting population of District 4. Half of them did not want me elected by minus 13, you know? I think that's more common throughout the districts than perceived. It's not like all districts are 100%, correct me if I'm wrong though, but yeah, that's all.
Well, Jeremy, I agree with what you're saying there, but what I look at is more what we can do as a board or as an individual supervisors to help that community. And so we do that through this, you know, whatever we can do for the schools, what we can do in fire departments, what we can do in policing, all the public service things. And the more that we have, like the community's whole, I think the more better say that we have in that. So if one of these districts has to go to 2 supervisors to get patrolling on one side of the street or the other side of the street, those are just issues that it seems to me, in my experience, it's a little more powerful just to have one person say it. Not that, you know, I'm going to want all the conservatives and want all the liberals, or you know, I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. And I'm really not talking about voting power. It's just what I can do for that community, and having, you know, say if I'm split Douglas City proper, like we split the store in half, that seems to not bode well for helping that community as a whole.
I would agree that the fire department, the store, definitely associates with Douglas City more than anything, obviously. And just to get back to, you know, people on one side of the street or the other, I was sitting down with Darryl day before yesterday, and I think there is a property on East Weaver that someone owns a property. They vote in District 1, but their house is actually in District 2. They're on both sides of the creek, and you know, those are the little kind of granular things I think we have the option to.
Just to fill out a little bit more, that was an elected supervisor.
Oh, I didn't know that. But you know, those are the things we need to clear up, and we certainly need to get the social fabric of our community to stay feeling as they do now, that they belong to a certain community, that this community gives to Douglas City, that Lewiston gives to Lewiston, Weaverville donates to Weaverville, you know, Hayfork to Hayfork. I think that, and I think the one, and nothing against the Pines, but there is quite a few people there, so the survey says, but not a lot of actively civically minded people. So as Jeremy said, you know, he'd be happy to take care of any of their concerns, as would Dan. So I don't have any heartache about breaking that community up, as they, I think, are the most, I'll say, they don't mind being as isolated as they do, you know, with 3,000 people and 150 voters or 200 voters less, I would say that the Pines is still going to be the Pines no matter what you do with the Pines. It's not going to change a lot. There's not a lot of votes there for anybody, so I don't think anybody's trying to grab votes. As a supervisor, we just have to make sure that they are represented. And you know, right now they have two great, if it turns out to be Dan and Jeremy, you know, they got two great representatives. So I think they'll be taken care of well.
But I think, interestingly enough, this has brought up a real issue about Post Mountain that we have ignored in this county for a long time. And because if we want to use the word disenfranchised, it also means anarchy, and they can do whatever they want. And so does Post Mountain want us to go in there and start dealing with them like we do the rest of the county? Do we want to go in and evict a bunch of people that aren't living in homes? Do we want to go in and enforce all the laws that we enforce elsewhere to the maximum level? I mean, it's an issue that is an issue amongst itself. That I think this is just showing the top of the volcano, that someday we're going to have to deal with it. And if that's, and I'm getting a little off track, but I think it's an important discussion, that if it gets its own EIR in the cannabis or whatever issues that we have to deal with, that it is a problem, and it is a problem, maybe not in their eyes, and maybe that's why we've left it alone, but I think in overall government eyes, it's a huge problem. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of trying to deal with that area that is basically a non-governmental area.
Not by government choice, so I don't think.
Well,
I disagree with that. I think a lot of people have allowed what's to happen there because it's Post Mountain. I think a lot of powers that be, and I'm going in the Wayback Machine, that as long as it stays in Post Mountain, it stays there.
All right, well, I do have a somewhat, I know I actually spent a lot of time on the mapping tool around Post Mountain, and if you zoom in as far as you can see some of the roads. And the issue I have, you zoom in far enough to see the roads, you can't see the communities of interest. And that's probably how I ended up splitting up Douglas City. I was trying not to. The reason I split Post Mountain between District 4 and District 5 instead of District 3 and District 5 is because, the first time I did it, I actually left High and Palm in District 5 and gave more Post Mountain to District 4, and then I went back after thinking about that and I changed that because the second scenario I did, it still leaves District 5, we're talking about disenfranchisement, District 5 would be 51% Asian. Not all those people are going to vote, but that kind of takes away the whole theory behind we're trying to disenfranchise people. I left Post Mountain fairly whole. The biggest majority of the population is still in District 5. I don't think that it change as much the way District 5 is now. I think I don't really have any concern for myself electorally how we split up District 5. My biggest concerns were splitting Ruth and Mad River and putting Mad River in District 4. That doesn't work. There's way too many physical barriers between District 4 and Mad River and Ruth are basically one community. So Mad River, Ruth, Kettenpalm, Xenia, those areas to me are District 5, the core of District 5, and then High and Palm is one of those communities to me that gets disenfranchised. It doesn't really matter what district you put High and Palm in, they're disenfranchised because they're off by themselves. They're more closely tied with Hayfork, but there's no way you can put them in a district with Hayfork because Hayfork has too much population. So it's going to be difficult to split things up so that somebody isn't being disenfranchised. But at the same time, I agree with Keith. One of the more important issues in my district is to make sure that those outlying areas have representation. I know that was an issue before where Hayfork was split in two pieces in District 5. Part of Hayfork was in District 5, part was in District 3. There's a big voting segment of District 5 is in Hayfork, and so representation could come from Hayfork. Well, Kettenpalm's a long way from Hayfork, and that's the kind of thing I don't want to see happen when we redistrict is we leave Kettenpalms and Highland Palms and Burnt Ranch, Big Bar, those communities way out there. We don't want them to be represented by somebody that lives in Weaverville, Hayfork, that doesn't ever get to the outlying area.
Well,
another question I would have though is how can we, as a board, get down to the street level? It's difficult. I know doing it on the mapping tool I think it would be beneficial if we could be, even if it was a Zoom meeting with Jerry and everybody looking at that at the same time and going, hey, wait, know that you're taking this or you're taking that, and at least have the board of supervisors. I think we can fairly well represent our constituents, but to get down in the weeds street level and try to make those final tweaks so we have a map that's usable. I know it's difficult when if I go on there and draw my map, I don't know what's in Jill's district. I don't know what's in Keith's district, and I can split something up that's not right. But if we're all sitting there together and making those final tweaks, I think that's what we need to do for the final outcome to be good. I don't know how we're going to go about doing that though.
So is it possible we could do that process on the 9th if Jerry was able to zoom in and it was on the big screen and we could really see that detail? The 9th has already been published, noticed, and then from that I appreciated the one comment who said, well, could you put that big draft map into the paper so that everybody feels like they really did see it before the final one was voted on? The comment that said, you know, we haven't done public outreach, I feel like we have. I feel like things have been noticed. I know I've been reaching out as best as I know how in public settings and through email and what have you. It's been in the paper and whatnot. So I feel like that base was covered, but I do think that the suggestion to put something in the paper is serving people well. But maybe if we could get really detailed on the 9th, then publish it and then vote one more meeting we would take before the 16th.
I have a hard time thinking that we'll be able to get into the details and come up with something and then vote on it the same day.
Right.
Dan, how long did it take you to make your draft? And thank you for doing that too. That's really nice to see.
The first one took probably 3 or 4 hours. The second one I worked off of the one I'd already done, so it was quick. I just put Highland Palm into District 4 and then adjusted in Post Mountain. But the initial time involved is substantial.
I started to make a draft, and yeah, it was pretty time consuming, and you kind of just get put in a whirlwind of trying to make the things work. It was challenging for me to try to extend District 4 into the areas that I wasn't too physically familiar with also. So it's nice to have a draft map from a supervisor. I think it would have been nice to have seen more from supervisors, especially those that want to have a strong opinion on this. It would have been great to have had more drafts from supervisors, including myself. But I will say that I'm not concerned. You know, I'm not going to serve one resident any differently than any other. So whatever area I'm given to be the district of, they're going to get treated the same way as anybody else. It's not going to change how I do my job. That's all.
So I think to make this process go a little bit quicker and get down to the street level, I worked with Kelly Sheen last week, and he has it down to the street level. He has populations per street, per the blocks, CIS blocks he came down to were, you know, unbelievable. He has the tool that we need to look at what we want to look at. And it did not take us too long to go through with myself and Kelly to look at moving 7 people to here and there and keeping the social fabric of our community pretty well intact. So I would definitely be in favor of having Darrow and Kelly at the next meeting. I know Kelly has the CIS blocks that are very in detailed, and I think they'd be very helpful for us getting down to, I think what we're mostly looking for is a street level map, so we can get this thing right and feel good about what we've done. And I agree with Jeremy, no matter who I serve, I'll serve right. So I think everybody else here would too. My concern is just keeping the social mental fabric of the community in that community.
Can I jump in here real quick? I'm sorry. I would be very hesitant to name a couple people to bring in to represent the community as local experts. I would probably recommend, if you're going to do something like this, we hold a meeting either on Monday or Tuesday and do it in the form of a workshop, so the entire public or the board would have the decision. But to just bring in 2 people, I would just, I have some concerns with that. Though they may be local experts, I would prefer either the panel being the board do a workshop with the consultants, or we do a workshop and solicit input from the entire community.
Again, I think I can agree with that wholeheartedly. That's why I actually would suggest that we do it as a board, just because while public input would be very beneficial, I think we could end up with too much input, and then we would end up stuck in the weeds on one little census block, and we could end up not getting stuff done on time. The other thing I would like to do, though, before we get too much farther, is we need to bring Jerry back in on this conversation and find out how he would like to help us address this. Are you still on there, Jerry?
Absolutely. I've been listening very intently. Again, I have so much respect for all of you and how much you care about getting this right. So absolutely, I can. I think one of the suggestions was to use that date that's already been noticed of December 9th as kind of a, if I heard it correctly, that might be and listening to what Richard said and what you just said, Dan, or Supervisor Frazier, is that maybe that would be like a workshop with the board, and then maybe me, consultant, using the tool. I'm available then. I could use the public mapping tool that Supervisor Frazier used, and Kelly Sheen did submit his map using that tool. I'm not sure if that's the same tool that Supervisor Grogan saw, but that mapping tool does have things down to the street level and shows all the populations for the blocks. And we could do something like, sounds like there's some thought that Supervisor Frazier's second map submission might be a good starting point, or maybe one of the other maps that have been submitted would be a good starting point. And I can show any of those in more detail at the street level right now. If you like, you can also do it. I can also show you how to access those on your own after this meeting. But we could use something that someone's already put a lot of time into as a starting point for that process.
I'd just like to jump in real quick. Having a special meeting to do the workshop on the 9th isn't ideal time-wise, because we have to have our maps adopted by the 15th. Otherwise, the state comes in and they take over the process for us, and then we get to pay for it a second time. So I would request that as a board, you guys do maybe a special meeting on the 6th to do your workshop. So we could still hold our special meeting on the 9th to adopt the, to start the process of adopting the final map.
We'll be here.
I would be open to that, but Keith's still digging in his phone calendar. Is anybody interested right now in diving into these maps a little more detailed, so at least we have maybe a starting place? If we are going to have a special meeting on December 6th, I think the more we can get done today, the better off we're going to be. We need to have a good place to start.
Seems to me we have to start in one district. And then there has to be like a point where we start and say, okay, that district's good, and then work our way around and then see what, then make final tweaks of that. But just to cut a broad spectrum this.
That's why I say if we look at these, the maps that we have, and try to look more detailed, especially the public submission maps, we saw them from a eagle eye view. If we can get a little closer on those and see if there is a version that we think, okay, this is a starting spot at least where we can make some final tweaks to this map instead of starting with our original boundaries, because it does take a long time to get anywhere near population-wise.
I support you guys if you want to do that process now. I'm going to have to leave soon. I'm in DC for the Christmas tree and everything already, so I've got some scheduled stuff and events tonight I have to get ready for. But, you know, I think, and I was thinking about it, I think District 4 is unique because it is this long string of various communities along the river, along the highway, and it also is a piece of Weaverville. So I've got little rural communities and a corner of Weaverville already. So I think for some people that would have gone against, you know, staying with the like communities. So District 4 is kind of already a mixed community bag. So and I'm saying this because I'm comfortable with whatever District 4 is expanded to. You know, it's expanding one way or another. That's inevitable. So I trust the process, and if you guys want to do that, I support it, but I will have to drop off shortly.
Thank you. So,
Get a running start on it today, jogging start anyways.
Hey Terry, just technological question really. Is there any way that you could take 2 or 3 maps and somehow kind of superimpose them? If we could look at the map Dan created, the second map Darrow created, and the map that Kelly created, and see if they all kind of lend toward a really nice final ideal, and maybe just comparing them would be helpful. Do you have the ability to do that?
Yes, not during this, not the second during this meeting, but I do have the ability to do that after this meeting.
It's an idea. Somebody can say, no, that's a really dumb idea, and I'm cool with that. But it just seems like there's components of each that seemed great. In finding a way to compare them quickly is what I was looking for.
well, I would be I would be interested in going back and looking at those publicly submitted maps, and probably one of the easiest things to do would be to start out with, okay, that map's not gonna work for anybody, and we'll throw one away. And then if we can go through that process and get down to a couple of maps that we want Jerry to put together, or that'll give us a better place to start. If we can get rid of the ones that we know won't work, for whatever reason we can explain to the board, I think that'd be a good place to start.
And Jerry, you do have street level maps for all these districts, pretty much?
If you
Yes,
zoom
sir.
far enough on that map tool, it'll get you there.
Okay.
Yes, sir, and I can show you also how, I'm glad to show whatever you like during this meeting. I can also show you and then the public as well, how you can access each of the maps that have been submitted, to look at them at the street level. Everyone has the ability to do that now.
So Keith, since you came up with the section by section discussion, and Dan's come up with the map by map discussion, should we just go through and maybe get out, or maybe some of the maps are very similar, some of them are just not likable at all, and kind of get those out and get it down to 3, 4, 5 that we might think are usable?
That's fine by me if you want to go start
And
going.
then we start looking at the ones that we kind of like and tweak them at street level to what we really like. All right, so let's go back to the, well, you're still the chair.
I think I'm still the chair. I think
Still easier to use it.
so, Jerry, can you get us back to those publicly submitted maps, and your map E2, I guess, would be one to throw in there?
Yes, sir. I can show you the map E. I don't have at the street level right now that I could show you, but I could include that in whatever I create. Maybe I could create a web map that has some of the favorites in it, as well as that if you'd like, after the meeting. But I did also I wanted to make sure I gave a shout out, some of the discussion about community outreach. I did want to say that I have observed that the Trinity Journal has been regularly posting or publishing articles about this process, and they did in fact, I think, include one of the draft maps in their article, I think, last Wednesday in the print edition. So hopefully there are folks, and I believe that the articles have directed the public to the redistricting website where they can find, that this is the redistricting website where they can find more information. So hopefully that has reached some folks. But yes, this is where you can go draw your own maps, the revised draft maps. I apologize, Supervisor Groves, they were published very late on the 24th, and that's why they weren't emailed to you. I don't believe Susie saw. She didn't really see until the morning of Thanksgiving my email that they've been posted, so that's on me. Public comments and maps submitted to date. This is a link to the PDF file that I'll show you right now. It has everything in it except for Daryl Forsland's map from yesterday, but I can also share that with you. So this is what that document looks like, and it has public comments, supervisor responses to a redistricting criteria, prioritization survey that we sent out, Supervisor Cox responded to that, and then it goes on to the public maps. Right now it starts with the ones on the 27th, but shortly after this meeting I'll have it updated with Daryl Forsyth from yesterday. But just so that you all can see within this document, and I can show you Daryl separately, I have the link for it, but there's the share link that the authors provide. So if you just click on that, that takes you to the mapping tool, and that's where you can see that individual's map at the street level. You can't do anything to break their map. Once this tool works, and Supervisor Frazier alluded to it, you can work on different versions of the map, and each time you kind of make changes, the share link. Oops, I'm sorry, that's not the right button. The share link that it asks you to submit and click submit your map, that changes each time you make changes to the map. So you could be working on the same map for a period of several hours, and you can make multiple submissions. It's just that each time you want to kind of pause and submit a map, you have to copy that share link and click submit your map, and then there's a form where you paste that share link. That's just the way that the tool has to work. So hopefully that makes sense, but I know it is slow.
Well, I mean, I think partly it's our internet here sucks, but.
I could, I have versions that are between Eagle Eye and street level that I could show you that are in the PDF document that could help us narrow it down. Then if we want to look at anything in street level, we could come back to this if you'd like. So if that works for you.
That'd be a place to start anyway. I do think that at least one of those draft maps split Bad River between 5 and 4. I know personally I would never vote for a final map that did that, so we can get rid of that. Yeah,
I agree.
so
I agree with you. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so.
But I don't remember what map that was, and it might have some.
I'll try to step us through these quickly, and I won't use the tool unless you ask me to zoom in on them. But
I think it was the second, third one.
One of the public submissions also did that.
How about draft map B?
That's one you don't.
do you want to, if you'd like, we could start by going through the public submissions.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. This is Darryl Forsland's submission from yesterday, which isn't in that large PDF document on the site just yet, but if I just step through it really quick, this is what District 1 looks like. This one does take it, like all of Canyon Creek watershed becomes part of District 1, and it goes quite far west, so I'm not sure if you want to retain this one or not.
No, I'm not a fan of that one.
Okay, so.
Okay.
And I think that would be, yeah, I think that would be a good one to get rid of to start with.
Okay.
Okay.
Or to at least revise it.
I like what it did to 2.
Yeah, and we can come back and look at District 2.
Okay.
There's some other ones that stretch 2 out as well. So this is, I'm sure you all like my very high-tech trying to keep accounting which ones we like here, but this is Darrow's the 27th. This is what it looks like at the Eagle Eye view, and then this is what District 1 looks like. This is what District 2 looks like. It's all within Weaverville. District 3, District 4 here, it has High and Palm, comes down, I think on this, I believe, it may take on a little bit of Ruth here, but otherwise comes down and comes into Post Mountain, District 5, and this is just showing how the CDPs are split. So this would be District 3, District 1 for Douglas City. Junction City might have been unintentional. Post Mountain has 4 and 5. If I heard feedback, this also has District 2 between 2 and 1. If I heard feedback correctly, this might be one that you might want to keep in the running.
Yeah. I think that would be one at least to look into. It looks like that zoomed in version right there, just doing a little bit of cleanup might help, because it looks like there's still some District 4 tucked into that right there.
Yeah.
So, and that was one of the issues I know I had trying to use the mapping tool. If you didn't zoom way in, you would have little tiny census blocks that were still around.
Yep. It's hard because some of them are so small. I think all tools have their limitations, and I really respect folks that took the time to submit maps, because it is using the tool at times, and just the mental load of trying to balance these things, it's a lot. So
my thought on that one is that you would go west for a couple of those blocks and move 4 out. So go to the blue
Yeah,
and then take the 2 voting blocks. Oh, you're trying to get to where you can do that.
so I think we're trying to kind of do a higher level of keeping like which maps would.
I see, all right,
Yeah, well,
all right.
but that's one,
I'll shut up.
that's one we could work with in a more of a public workshop type format.
This is Kelly Sheen's map, which if I heard correctly, he worked with Supervisor Grogan and quite a bit of effort was put into it, so I would suspect this might interest to keep in the running. This has, but I'm not the one making the decision, I'm not gonna try to sway you, but this has, I'll just kind of go through here again. This is what District 1 looks like. It does have part of East Weaver still, and let's see. Yeah, kind of for East Weaver.
Those are sneaky blocks.
They're sneaky, yeah.
1,000 people each one.
I think, we'll see how individual CDPs are split. I think it might just be easier for me to skip it.
I think that one though, that I think I have an issue with that map is that it looks like it dips down. I can't tell if he uses South Fork or if it crosses South Fork in District 5.
Okay.
So I think he said he used South Fork Mountain, but as long as that's the bridge.
I think it's right along here.
So again, I was also using some of the way the blocks were broken up had to do with both school districts and or special districts. And I would caution, I used those, you can see that stair stepping right there. That's basically South Fork Mountain at the top. All the population that's like, say, Hidden Valley and some of those areas that are, basically it's all retained within the South Fork watershed, so in 4. But I use those stair steps because I know that those happen to relate to special district boundaries. And like if you're looking at Weaverville, for example, if you start pulling out blocks like in that north part of town, you're gonna start messing with whether or not somebody that actually like resides within, say, the Weaverville Fire Protection District votes for things that come up with regard to the Fire Protection District. So, wherever possible, I tried to utilize those sort of unnatural boundaries because I know that they're related specifically to special districts.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that division didn't dip down into the Mad River area, which it doesn't, so.
No, it doesn't. Mad River is entirely represented within 5 in my version.
Okay, so I think that would be another one that we could dive deeper into.
I'm up to the top of it so far.
Great. This was Keith Greenwood's submission on the 23rd. A slightly different boundary. It looks like between around the South Fork Mountain area. So it's kind of, and there's also just kind of a larger kind of part of District 4 coming down to Post Mountain. But let me show you what things look like more specifically. That was District 1, District 2. I think in this version, Weaverville is mostly District 2, except for these blocks here in East Weaver, I guess, and Muscle Hill that are District 1. It's easier to see kind of. This shows District 5. I think Ruth and Mad River within District 5, and then Douglas City is split between 3 and 1. A Fork, this may have been unintentional, there's just one block that was in District 4, but the rest is in District 3, so this shows, actually looks like, I think Mad River was split between, yeah, that may not be intentional, where Yeah, go ahead.
I think that that one, I wouldn't, that's one I wouldn't entertain. Where do you split Mad River? That's just too much of a jump for me to take Mad River and Ruth apart. It basically should be one CDP.
Good enough, let's take a look. All
So
right, we're kicking that one out.
Jill had shared Keith's Greenwood's map with me, and I sort of used a lot of the conceptual aspects of what Keith was trying to capture as the basis for the one that I worked on with Liam.
Right.
I know that Keith's goal in that was that he was trying to give each district a little piece of wilderness so that we would all maybe have more of a dream of understanding the wilderness better. And I appreciate that a lot. I feel like with, at least to speak for District 2, I care about the wilderness, so I don't need a piece of it, and to hear those concerns and what have you. And so the fact that Kelly took that into consideration, what I'm feeling deeply right now is that I really appreciate Kelly's knowledge of the school district and the special district boundary lines. That's going to be really important. So the fact that he, is already kind of incorporating the concept seems good.
Yeah, that one, I don't know that there's really much in the way of population in those two pieces that stretch just north of there that kind of like went up into the wilderness. So I sort of left those purposefully out. I was definitely understanding that point from Keith, but because obviously and when we're talking about the wilderness, that's not the only ones. Like there's wilderness in 3, there's wilderness in 5, there's wilderness in 4. 2 is the only one that doesn't quite have that reach. Those could be included, but again, my thought process more had to do with sort of the man-made, boundaries that we had with regard to the special districts and school districts.
Okay, so
This is also showing, this shows at the Eagle Eye how Kelly's map compares to Keith's. So yeah, definitely similarities, and it sounds like Kelly tried to build off of Keith's. So we're keep
Kelly's and get rid of Keith's because he splits Mad River, and I'm
right.
All right, we're good with that.
and then it seems like
Who's this guy?
This guy, Supervisor Frazier's submission from the 22nd, which if I heard Supervisor Frazier correctly, he, as the author of this, preferred this to his prior one. You built off of your prior one and created this one.
Yeah, this is the one where I think the second one is the one where I put High and Palm in District 4. I'm not positive.
That's correct. Yeah, this is the one that has it in District 4.
So yeah, I prefer this one to my other one, but because it does, it addresses some of the concerns about disenfranchising Post Mountain because it leaves a bigger block in Post Mountain.
For District 1, in my view, it's just a couple of little tiny tweaks. I like it.
You like it?
Yeah, it says.
I like, well, that's in my district.
Let's keep your preferred,
This has the shape for District 2 that I believe Supervisor Cox said that I getting them confused, but it seemed that she liked the wider shape for one of Darrow Forsland's.
Yeah. I'd like to see it.
And keeps.
I can't tell that's what.
Yeah.
But,
I can go to the stream level or, but right now,
Sure, yeah.
sounds like we probably want to keep this one in the running.
And my only concern with that one was that northern part of Weaverville, because
Kelly, we're not really doing workshop at this point. We'll probably do that on another date, and then we'll take more of your input.
Very good.
All right. Should we skip, since this is fairly similar, Supervisor Frazier, to your to your other one, only this has High and Palm in District 4. Should we just take your other one out of the running?
Yeah, that'd be fine with me.
Does the rest of the board agree with that?
You guys?
Yes.
Yeah, we're good.
So the next one would be Supervisor Frazier's from the 21st, that has High and Palm in District 5. Otherwise, things are very similar to his one from the 22nd that we're keeping in the running. There's only 2 more public maps. This is Laurel Dummer's map from the 17th. This has, I believe this has District 1 taking on a decent portion of Douglas City, splitting it with District 4. And this has Districts 3 and 5 splitting Post Mountain. So it's definitely very different.
I will be the first to say no.
Okay.
That seems like a little aggressive of a split of Douglas City area to me.
I think Dan says we get rid of one.
Okay.
Nice effort.
And then the first public map submission was from the 28th from Ed, resides in District 1. I think this runs counter to some of what we talked about as far as South Fork Mountain, Ruth and Mad River.
Yeah, I think that the physical barriers in that one are insurmountable. I see that working right.
And I don't have this showing the blocks, but this is what the, oh, that's not a map. I'm sorry. This is what, I can zoom in and show you where some of the lines are on the mapping tool if you like, but kind of more broadly speaking, these are the most zoomed in that this map goes, and I understand the concerns about that, but this is where, that I presented earlier, where District 4 obviously takes on part of Weaverville, and then this is District 1 and District 2 for Weaverville. District 2 would also take on Douglas City, Post Mountain split between 5 and 3. High and Palm is in District 4, Hay Forks all in District 3. So it's up to you all if you'd like to keep that in the running, or if you want to see the other draft maps that we've put forth and keep any of those in the running if you want.
I'm not a huge fan of it.
It's, I wouldn't mind keeping it in the running.
I think we can get, well, that's fine. I think we can get better things out of the other ones we have.
I mean, maybe tweaking the other ones is.
Yeah, I think we can probably get closer. I think they're a better start for us.
Okay.
So it looks like basically consensus is we're going to start out by splitting Post Mountain into District 4 and 5 instead of 3 and 5. That's kind of what it looks like.
Well, I think there's I think that's a high probability, but I don't think that we can just throw out District 3 being part of that or being close to it.
It could be.
Because basically, I need the most. You got to start at the top and start working down and start eating ground and seeing where you get as you go down. Because 2 and 1 and 3 have to gain ground as we're at 4, excuse me. We have to gain ground going down, gain population. And then we have to see where that shoves as you go down into 3 and 5.
So do you want to keep that one for reference, Keith?
Well, if you're saying maybe the other ones are a better starting point, that's fine. There's.
So then. Keith, what do you want to do? Want to keep it in photo?
I would keep it in, but look at it the last.
Okay, that sounds like.
Fair enough.
It's a Maybe. We gotta have some maybes in there.
Split decision.
So,
Any of the other maps, any of the other draft maps have been put forth, or just keep it at these 4?
I think we're probably pretty good with those 4. And then, is there a way that you can kind of show us a superimposed version of those 4 maps, or 2 at a time, or so we can put them over the top of each other and take the best of each and end up with a perfect map?
Yeah, I could work on, I would think over the next year, I could get a web map put together, something that you could go in and interactively look at them all at the same time with different things for each one. I can also share that, of course, if there happens to be the meeting on the 6th, I can simply have it for that as well.
And I think that's probably the next thing that we need to decide as a board is if, I don't know. So you guys.
Having a sidebar, we apologize.
That's all right. We need to decide, do we want to try to dive deeper into these maps with what we have today, these 4 that we looked at? And do we want to schedule a workshop on December 6th? Those are the 2 questions we need to answer.
Yes and yes.
I would say probably yes and yes, but the more work we can get done today, because the 6th is the day before a board meeting, and that will have.
We don't have a board meeting on the 7th.
There's no meeting on the 7th.
It's
That meeting was canceled.
because of CSAC.
Because of Pearl Harbor Day, and we don't want to have another disaster.
That meeting was never scheduled.
Okay, that's awesome.
I would say since several of us are going to Monterey, that we should try to end this by noon.
Today?
All right, so let's,
So I say let's decide whether or not we're having a meeting on the 6th. It sounds like
Yes.
the only way we're going to be able to do that, and it looks like we have consensus on that. So is that good enough direction to staff to schedule us a workshop on December 6th at 9 a.m.?
That works for me.
And before we let Jerry go, can I just ask you again, if you think it would be helpful to kind of maybe do some overlays to compare the differences between these that we've said we kind of liked components of? Or does that not seem like a meaningful way of kind of looking into it deeper comparatively?
You're asking me?
I am.
I would say from my technical opinion is that when you're trying to, and Kelly Sheet as a GIS professional might have some thoughts too, but I tallied that there's 4 different versions of maps that we're interested in exploring. And there's 5 districts. Usually when you're trying to compare, it can get a little tricky to try to create, say, like one static map that shows kind of all of those at the same time, because that would be very busy. And what we've put forth so far, at least that we've posted to the website, have been static maps. But what I would propose would be that we create something just like a public web map that could be linked on the website, and then the rest of the public could look at the same thing you're looking at. And the way that would work is it would be set up so that you could basically check a box for each of the 4, so that you could decide which ones you want to look at the same time, because it's really hard to look at 4 different sets of lines at the same time. But that would be a little bit more interactive and might be more flexible for you to kind of be able to see the differences. If I try to make a series of static maps showing you the differences, I think it's going to be really difficult to really like stomach. So I think you playing around with the web map yourself would probably be better. We could try to do whatever we can to set that up and make it faster than the modeling tool.
Yep, no, I like your idea, that being able to check them in and out and overlay them as you want is actually what I was envisioning. I just didn't know really how to say it, so that's great,
Yeah.
thank you.
I think it would take us, I would think by midweek we could have that for you.
That'd be great, thank you.
Jerry, and you won't have any problem getting that map system put together by the 6th?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah.
By the 5th, so it can be on the website, or on our backup.
And then, if you guys have any other questions for Jerry?
I don't for Jerry, but.
That's what I have, a question for Jerry. He did say he was going to show us how to use the street level map.
Yes.
Okay.
So if we had that, that would help some of us that are working this stuff, so.
Can you jump into that a little bit in the next couple of minutes and show us how to get a closer view of that map?
Absolutely. So let's say, for example, the only one that's not available to you right now would be our revised draft map E, because it's not in the district scenario, it's not in the public mapping tool, but I think I can see about getting that added there. But for any of the other three, the public map submissions from the 27th, the 24th, or the 22nd, if you just go to, if you go to the redistricting website at redistricting.trinitycounty.org and then click on this link for the online public comments, and once that loads, it's the same file that I already have open here.
Would you mind sharing your screen as you do that?
Oh, goodness.
I'm make it as difficult as possible for you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought I was sharing, yeah, definitely thought I was sharing my screen. So if you go to redistricting.trinitycounty.org and then click on this link for public comments received through 11/27, and this is going to keep getting updated. Then if you click on that, it will take you to this document. And within that, it has, starting on page 5, it has all of the public maps submitted through the website. And so this would be Darrow Forson's from the 27th, but the ones that that's actually one of the ones that we want to keep in the running. So if you want to access it at the street level, you just click on the share link that's posted here, and that will, I know that the tool is slow, but it is what we have. Usually and I don't know why this is the case, but usually it loads zoomed in on the last block that was assigned. So generally, I just hit, you have to kind of zoom out to the full extent. Usually the tool starts at the full extent, but zoom out in order to unselect that and just click somewhere that's outside of the county, and that unselects that block that it starts out on. And then it's just a matter of, I usually like to go to this little play button and change it to this pan tool so that as I'm clicking around, I'm not selecting blocks and only looking at those, and then I can kind of pan around. And I know that it does take a little bit of time to load. But if I wanted to look at certain areas, I can then either using the plus and the minus button, or if you have a mouse with a scroll, which I do, you can just scroll in and zoom in to an area, and eventually it starts to show the streets. Right now, it's all these different lines are the lines for the census blocks that you have to work with, and some of those do correspond to streets, but others don't. So I'm going to keep, once you're zoomed into an area and you want to focus on that area for a while, the good thing is that at least it's, you don't have to wait, you can look at the map, but.
Am I missing the street part of this? It will eventually pop up.
So these are these orange lines, and these gray lines are the streets, but you have to zoom in far enough to see the names of them.
You have to zoom way in.
Maybe Post Mountain wasn't the best area to choose. Maybe not as many roads there, but you can see that if you zoom in far enough, you can see roads.
Let's give a look at Weaverville in that perspective then.
Absolutely. You can also do a thing where if you want to see how a particular these are all the CDPs. If you want to see how they're split or focus on just those, if you hover over this icon here, you can see how the populations are split amongst districts. And if I click on that, then it selects just Weaverville. But I have to wait for this to load. It does take a little bit of time.
You did this off a satellite, Dan?
Yep.
Man, you were better than me.
That is impressive.
You did this up Blue Board?
Almost there. Obviously, you can see some of the roads here.
Right, just go right there, that's fine. Anywhere.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, that's fine, I know the neighborhood, I can tell.
Yeah. Well, since I selected just like, yeah, that's showing only the blocks, but then you can see that's where you can see the kind of the more you zoom in, the more of the names for like minor roads it starts to show, basically. And if you're zoomed further out, you kind of just see the names for more major roads. Like I know this is Highway 3, Trinity Lake Boulevard.
Could you show us as close as possible?
Absolutely, yes. If you zoom in this far, you can see where it's available, at least on the base map. There's some building footprints and different things like that. May not be completely current.
Okay.
And zoom in. Once you're, see how it's like, it's probably hard for you to tell because I'm the one operating it, but the more, like when I'm zoomed into an area like this, it loads faster. When you're looking at a larger extent of the map, that's when it's a lot slower because it has to keep track of all the data for all those different census blocks. But when you're zoomed in on a smaller area, it doesn't have to work as hard, so it's faster. So you can see, if you click on the, just to show you again, the way to access, I have so many things open here. I think I closed the, if you click on this link, then it opens this PDF document that has, and then if you scroll down, like I said, I think it's starting on page 5, that's the public maps that have been submitted. And to access one of these maps, this is the one that we were looking at just now, you just click on the link and you can't do anything to break the map that the person submitted. It only kind of builds from there. If you wanted to go and actually, you could use, I could actually use the map. I could make some changes to this map right now if I wanted to, using Darrow's as the starting point. And then after I made some changes, I could get the share link and then click submit your map and submit it. And it would, I could use that as a starting point basically. Any other questions that I can answer technically?
Do you guys have any other questions? Okay.
Oh, yeah. Could I just revisit, we kept 4 maps, correct? The revised E, 27, 24, and 22.
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yes. The only one that you don't have access to at the street level right now is, ironically, is revised draft map E. I can, that will be in the web map that we create, and then we'll put a link to on the website, so then you'll have access to just these 4, and it should be faster than using this, I think.
So when you're using the map, how do you block out like whole areas to, so?
I can show tricks.
Yeah.
Like, let's say if you wanted to, and it's okay for me to keep going, you guys are okay on time?
Yeah, we have a few more minutes.
Okay.
All right. If we were trying Supervisor Gross, for example, to maybe add, let's just say we wanted to add all of these blocks here to 1. I like to use what's called the lasso tool, and the way that the tool works, I'm gonna select the blocks that I want to move to 1 are in either 2 or 4 right now. So it doesn't really matter if I select some that are already in one and then, but I'm just kind of drawing with this tool. I'm trying to highlight the whole area that I want to be part of one. And then if I hover over any of these, but logically to me, it makes the most sense to do one of the ones I want to change. I have to remove these blocks from District 2, and then they become unassigned. And based on how many I select using that lasso tool, it just kind of operates on all of them as applicable. So, for some reason it's also showing that they're part of District 3, so that's a weird little glitch with it. So I just remove them from that. Once they're assigned, they're gray. There's also a couple here that are part of District 4, so I'm going to remove those blocks from District 4. When you're removing blocks, you always have to remove from the current one and then add it to the one you want to add it to. So now, and obviously when I did those things, it didn't do anything with these blocks because they were already part of District 1. So now I'm just going to hover over this and add. If I say add to District 1, it's going to add all of these ones to District 1. And then I also noticed that this one was also like left out and unassigned, I think, although actually showing as District 1, so that's good. And that changed them to District 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's some different tricks. So I admittedly, there's a little bit of a learning curve to trying to use it, and it's challenging when you're dealing with a slow internet connection. I also like to use this little menu of the CDPs to click on the one that I want to work on at a given time so that I don't see all the other blocks. And if I want to do things like what I just did there, I don't accidentally make changes that I don't want to make.
Any other technical questions? Are we good to go?
Should we map out how we're going to do? Darrell, do you want to say something?
Just real quick, but it seems like what you're saying is that you can limit to those 4 maps as your base maps to work on.
Yes.
So that's probably what anybody outside would want to do as well.
Yes.
Not to create a new map, but work on one of those 4 if they want to make comments on it.
Right.
Is that right?
I think that would be a good place to start. Is let's try to make minor changes to create a perfect map instead of major new maps.
Is there any way that Jerry could help us from the website to, if people jump on there, for there to be a section that says these are the maps that we have now limited it down to start? So that they're not confused, it just helps us give the public more clarity.
I think if I can respond.
Yeah.
Good point. So I think what would probably make the most sense would be to add another thing here that says, like, I can do it today, that says new 11/29/2021, and it could say something like draft maps in consideration or something, and just basically refer to the ones to the 4 and kind of direct people to go here to see and access the 3 public maps the way that I just described to you how to do that, and make sure that they can see that and understand that they them to the street level, and then also point them to draft map E. And once we, I can also say on here that we're creating a separate web map that includes just those 4 maps that are in consideration, that will be posted later this week or something, and have a link to it so that the public has access to the same web map that you'll have access to. And it's not going to be a web map where you can make changes to blocks like the mapping tool has. It's just going to show you what they look like as they are. But a lot of folks can see those and provide comment.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a kind
Thank
of
you, sir.
format for this?
Absolutely.
How we're going workshop. Workout. This is
We'll have a workshop, so it'll be everybody's invited. We can decide that. Do you guys want to have a public workshop on the 6th, or do you want to just take public comment briefly and then do a board of supervisors workshop? How do you want to do that?
Well, in a workshop, model that I would suggest is that you can do the public comment. You don't have to have it come to the supervisors, go through this, and then at some point during that process stop
And take public
and
comment.
take public comment in a workshop form. Depending on how big the crowd, or, you know, if you just have a few people, then they can participate. If you've got 50 people here, then it's going to have to be more formal.
So I think probably the best way to deal with that would be just to see what it looks like on the 6th and leave it up to the chair.
Sounds good to me.
I wouldn't want to shut off public comment because we need some expert knowledge in the room.
I don't think we'll shut off public comment entirely, but we might not have a lot of public engagement in the process if it's going to take too much.
So if we come up with just a few people like today here, we will have public engagement with the map.
You can suggest that to the chair.
You won't be the chair, will you?
I won't be the chair. So,
I'll do it.
I think,
Well, public workshops, you have more ability to allow people to speak. It's a little looser thing. So it's up to the chair to decide if he wants to have them speak every time we do something, or to say, we're going to finish this task, like we redo District 1. And, okay, that looks good. Does the public comment on what we did there? And then we do District 2, and then the same sort of thing. So.
and we might want to bring a lunch.
I don't have a feeling there's gonna be many people here.
It's-
You never know.
I think just between the 5 of us, we can probably make this a long story that becomes endless. So, all right, I think we're done. So with that, we can be adjourned at 11:31.
All right, and we are at 6, right?
We will see you guys on December 6th.
So Susan, if that'll happen, would you please?
Yeah,
Sure.
I've heard
Enough